Boom. And we're live. Hopefully. Cross fingers. I think it should work. The first video episode. Shout out my homie and fabulous co-host here, Mr. Omar.
Oh, yes. We are feeling fabulous today.
Coming with the shades. You got the Ray-Bans on too. That hat that I wanted to steal for some time, but then I put it on and I realized it didn't fit me at all. And we're back here. And as always, I'm Juan, your other co-host. Like we said, this will hopefully, if all goes well, be our first video episode. We're not exactly sure where it's going to be placed exactly. Maybe YouTube, maybe somewhere else. I have to figure out the logistics. But if everything went well, you're seeing our handsome faces. I was going to say beautiful, but, you know, I feel like we're on the handsome side.
Yeah, we're masculine men. We can't be saying that.
All right. We're masculine men. All right. Testosterone. Yeah, so this is also actually happens to be our 60th episode, which I think is pretty cool. 60th episode is our first video episode. And we actually want to talk about a pretty big topic, something that I think we could honestly do like a whole series of like 10 episodes or more on, at least just based on like how many books I've read and people I've met relating to this topic. But the topic here is leadership. And it's a topic that a lot of people talk about. Frankly, too many people. I think certain people start talking about this and it's like, I don't think you know what you're talking about exactly. But one of the loudest voices that I think is that I have the book from and that I base sort of my leadership knowledge and other life, I suppose, lessons from is Jocko Willink, retired Navy SEAL, commander. I think it was the battle of Ramadi where he was at. And just sort of his book, Extreme Ownership, has really... I've talked a lot about David Goggins because his book has like... The way I talk about that is like that book really teaches you how to be a great sort of human in the sense of like performance, you know, like getting through shit, your mental barriers, very personal. Extreme Ownership is very much like about teams, about leadership, about once you know who you are, once you're comfortable with who you are, your insecurities, all those other things, and you want to be a leader. That's sort of what the book focuses on. So we wanted to start with leadership and talk a little bit about that. So, Omar, are you a leader? Do you consider yourself a leader? Do you want to be a leader? Do you just hear the word leader and, oh, shit. Oh, excuse me. That's my answer right there. I'll step back at this point.
What up?
Took off your fucking glasses. All right.
Like my eyes are all like all squinty because everything looks super bright.
You didn't plan for that one, did you?
I did not. Still preparing. Do I consider myself a leader?
I mean, all of the above. Do you consider yourself a leader? What do you think overall about leadership? Like, you think it's just some phony stuff, like some
like
buzzword that people are just talking about? What's your take?
My mind has gone through a lot of different phases when it comes to leadership, because I think I've kind of mentioned this on the podcast. Like, I've never really had a quote unquote role model growing up, like somebody to look up to, somebody to aspire to be. So I'd never really, I guess, realized the potential of being a leader or having a good leader around you or leading you. I think it was probably more recently that I started really focusing on that. Like, what does it mean to be a leader? What's the whole point of having a good leader, right? Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of the big companies, I don't think any of the big movements we've seen throughout history would exist or even happen if they didn't have a good leader behind them.
Yep.
You know, one of the earliest that I can remember is like, say, Henry Ford. You know, like he changed and impacted the automotive industry for the rest of time. You know, no matter what people do, they're moving on to EV, right? Electric vehicles and all that. Cool. But don't forget who was the first one to do it, right? First and best, honestly. Like, his impact will always be there. And that's the power of a leader, right? To implement changes that will forever impact this world or impact a company or just impact history, right?
Yep.
So yes, I think leaders are required. Leaders are necessary. And I think we ourselves need to see that within ourselves. We need to be leaders. But why though? Why, Juan? Why are leaders so important?
Ooh, how long do you have?
Yeah, right.
Why are they important? I think why they're important depends on like what exactly they are, what they do, sort of what represents a leader. Because we often think about like teams and teams having like a leader. And at least for me, like growing up, sort of, you go soccer, you have the captain who's usually the leader, maybe the best one. I always associated leaders as like the best one, like the one that has the most skills, has the most knowledge. It's just the best prepared overall. Now I see that that sort of was a flawed idea, because a leader can literally know the least and yet lead everyone, right? Because if you think about it, a leader has to have enough knowledge to be in the market or whatever it is they're in, that they're leading a team in, let's say a company. But they also have to have enough forward thinking to not be in the weeds in terms of like actually doing the coding, for example, or doing the actual small logistic hand stuff, because they have to have a higher level understanding of the overall business, right? So I always thought like, if I have a question, right, I'll just go straight to the leader. But that's really not the case, right? Because the leader will probably not know. They probably won't even know like exactly what you're talking about. They'll know what you're talking about in reference to a much, much larger picture, right? So I think a leader is someone who has to balance a lot of different things. And they have to... I honestly think a leader is the most difficult job in the world. I think nothing to me like comes close to the difficulties and the dichotomy and difficulty overall of just being a leader, because you have to literally like reading the book of like the Jocko's book. It was like he would say one thing and then three pages later he would contradict it. And I'm like, okay, well, this guy's like talking bullshit, And then three pages later he'd be like, yeah, I contradicted that. That's literally the job. Like on one side, like for him in particular, right? He was leading Navy SEALs. On one side, you care about them. You want them to be the most prepared, the most effective at their job. And then on the other hand, right, you're sending them to like potentially life-ending missions and stuff, right? And it's a less of a consequence in actual companies, but there's still lives at stake. If you don't manage your company correctly and you have 150 employees, you go bankrupt, 150 employees don't have jobs now, right? Something has to change in their lives. And it was a direct impact of you, right? That is something that I appreciate, that the book itself is called Extreme Ownership, because that idea was so foreign to me. It's so easy to like why isn't something done? Like, shit, it was that guy's fault. Like, yeah. Like, Omar did that one thing. Like, or he didn't do this other thing. It's like, it's so easy to just think about that, right? Because there are things that other people do that are mistakes. But if you're part of that same team, their mistakes are your mistakes. And if you're the leader, everyone's mistakes are your mistakes. Everyone's fuck ups are your fuck ups. And I'm still processing that, because that's such a impactful thing. Think about that, right? If you're in charge of something and someone messes it up, just because maybe they lack knowledge, they lack training, that lack of knowledge and that lack of training is your fault as well, right? And so leader really has to consider everything that everyone's doing, and at the end of the day, the performance, it will always come down to the leader, right? I won't spoil our wow for this episode, but it always depends on the leader.
Yeah, I think a leader's a reflection of their team, right? Like you're saying, if a team has flaws, if they have certain mistakes they've been making, that's a direct reflection of that leader, right?
Yep.
And what's also fascinating to me is, say in this scenario, we have somebody leading a team in a workplace, right? So you could think of it as a boss and the employees, manager and employees, right? That type of a scenario. You have to separate your personal life from your work life, right? So
Yep.
if you're a leader, you have to be able essentially to turn off your emotions or set them aside for the best
Partially.
interest of that team, right? Of the employees,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes when the stakes are high, it's very difficult for human beings to be able to turn off their emotions, right? Because
Of course.
as we've discussed, right, you get triggered sometimes, whether it's something good or something bad, right? Certain things will trigger things that come out of you that you can't necessarily help, right? But that's the thing. As a leader, you have to be able to. You can't be, blurting things out to your employees. You can't be yelling at them. You can't be disrespecting them or degrading them because you're relying on them to get whatever task they have at hand done. And you might just get in their way of getting those things done, right? As a leader, I think you're also, not only turning off your emotions, but you're supposed to also step out of the way when need be and not get in their way, right? To delegate that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that delegate is a key thing there. I wrote two main things from the book that I really love. One is decentralized command, which is exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that idea because I don't think I've wanted to be a leader, but I haven't yet been in a super direct position of it. But I've always loved this idea of decentralized command because I wasn't a leader, I appreciated being a leader in my own little subset, at least, just to get like a taste for me, like of leadership. And decentralized command is just that thing. The CEO, trusts his executives to carry out his mission, and then they trust their, subordinates or whatever, whoever works under them to do the tasks, and and everyone trusts themselves.
Right.
And in that case, right, the CEO doesn't have to like foresee some big market change necessarily, right? Someone, that's just like coding or doing some basic thing, whatever, doing their everyday job, can actually spot it and say like, hey, this actually has to change, and send it up the chain of command, right? Whereas normally we think about like the CEO, the jefe, whatever, barks at you is like, do this, and you always expect the orders to be going down, right? But this concept of decentralized command sort of intrinsically also brings up another thing, which is leading up and down the chain of command, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not just, again, leading down and saying like the leader is carrying all the weight and doing all of this. It's a huge, if it's a huge company, it's impossible. I think, in the book, it's like really in reality, like one person can handle and lead about 6 people, and 6 to like 12 maybe. After that, you just can't do it effectively. There's just too many people to handle, too many people to have meetings with and, tell direction. So after that point, right, instead of your organization sort of becoming more vertical, you have to spread it out, become more horizontal, right? Whereas now, instead of managing those, 12 people, maybe you manage 2 people from there. And then the other 10 are managed by those 2 people themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, each sort of subset, each employee has to take responsibility of their own work. Each employee has to lead. And that is something that I'm thankful enough working in the current company that I'm working in, because it's a startup that I have taken to absolute heart. And I am, really fighting to get in these huge meetings to be able to let them know, like, hey, this isn't working. That's working. This isn't working. This way that you were thinking about it, we can't do that anymore. Things like that. Because I know for a fact, again, I started 6 months ago, but I know my shit. I know like what I'm talking about. And I know for a fact, like what I'm talking about and the things that I know has a huge impact on the company. Because if I'm telling them like, hey, you can't keep doing this, otherwise you're going to keep coming across this problem again, and it's going to keep costing us time, and you're going to keep paying those employees for their time to fix those issues, go over and over and over again. You're just wasting money. You're wasting time. You're wasting people's time. And that is the most precious resource that we talked about. And again, it's just super important. Decentralized command, leading up and down the chain of command. And everyone at every stage has to do their part. It can't just be one guy saying something or a group of people, the board members saying something. It really has to be a collective effort.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as a leader, you have to make your team feel appreciated, welcome. You can't have them feeling like they're your subordinates, right? You have to really make them feel like a team, you know.
Not
Maybe
just
even
feel,
as a
but act.
yeah, of course, yeah, act. You know, maybe even furthermore a family to some extension, right?
Yeah.
Like say for Jocko Willink, being out in the field, right? Like being in war and all that, like these men are relying on each other. You know, they're relying on him.
Yeah.
I think the best thing in that scenario is like, yeah, you guys are a family now. Like you guys have each other's back. There's
sure.
nothing else here, right? And taking that kind of a mindset into a workplace scenario or a scenario where you need a team, right? If you're making some sort of an event or whatever, right? You want that team to feel like a family. You want them to be able to rely on each other. You want them to be able to communicate freely. You don't want there to be any bad tension. You don't want there to be some sort of disruption in the workplace or within the team apart from
trust.
whatever's going on. Yeah, right. You have to very much see it like a life or death situation, right? Because I think we've all gone through experiences in the workplace where you have a bad coworker, right? And you're like, God damn it, like they never do their job, or like they're so lazy, or this or that, right? And part of a leader or being a leader is being able to notice that and see, okay, there's a weak link here. There's somebody that's not doing their job. There's somebody that's not working up to the standard that we're setting in this place, right?
Yeah.
And either speaking with that person or letting them go, letting them know that, hey, you don't belong in this team if you can't work at the same standard as everybody else. Because at that point, not only are you failing the team, but now you're essentially bringing everybody back. You know, if your standard is a 10 out of 10, one weak link will bring it down to a 5 out of 10. You know.
Yeah. And in that case, you know, yeah, I would go down that route as well, probably after like additional training, I think, because if they're the weak link and they're not good at their job, that again is a failure on my part. I haven't done something to make them capable of doing their job at a very high level. And so for me, I'm training them more. But yes, if after training sort of consistently, you know, maybe it's not something so much of confusion or lack of training, then it's, you know, maybe just personality. Like, I don't care about this job. I'm just getting along until my next job. Then, yeah, right. There's nothing there that you can really do to fix it or inform them of anything new. Then at that point, yeah, you have to sort of cut out the cancer in a way. That sounds super dramatic, but in a sense, you have to do that. And
well, I don't think it's dramatic at all because, you know, cancer, quote unquote, right, spreads. So if there's one weak link, they're not doing their job, they're not that good standard that you're setting, somebody else will catch on to it, right? And they're like, hey, he's getting paid the same I am, and he's doing half the job. Why should I? Right?
Yeah.
That's what can happen. And it does happen, you know?
Yeah. And what I've realized too is, it's the leader's sort of ultimate responsibility, but that whole, I really am taking the leading up and down the chain of command and decentralized command to heart. And if that's your coworker and they're doing that previously, I wouldn't care. I'm like, I'm doing my job. I don't care. Now I'm like, that's my responsibility too. It has to be, you know what I mean? Because it has to be, we're a team. And if they fail, then yes, ultimately it always comes down to the leader, but it also comes down to you. You have to be part of an effective team, and in doing that, you have to bring other people around you up. So I've really taken that to heart personally, like my current company, in working with my team and reviewing their code and doing other things like that. Not just saying like, hey, you did this wrong or you did that wrong. Like, hey, it seems like you're not really understanding this part of what I'm doing here. Like, do you want to set up a meeting, clear it up, do something of that sort? That way we can clear it up and stop the problem from happening again, right? And you don't think your leader notices that, but they definitely like do. You know, like, oh, yeah, this person's coming up and they're not doing it alone. You know, I haven't spent additional time training them, so they're training someone else is like helping them out there, right? And if you're constantly doing that, and you're, you know, constantly doing your own work, of course, and everything else, those things get noticed, right? So definitely. And how do you think someone becomes that, like a leader at any level? Let's say a CEO, let's say a commander, let's say just, a team of 5 people and one of them is leading.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Good question. I think I might have even asked you this back in the day. I was like, do you think there's such a thing as natural born leaders? Right?
Yeah.
I think that there is people that have a quality, whether it be that they're just generally more social or more outgoing in a public setting. They're more extroverted. I don't know. I think there's definitely a few qualities that separate people in that kind of a sense to make them a leader. What makes a leader? It's a good question. I think it's obviously a combination of things, right? For me, though, I think it comes from a background where you're really social. You're really an external person. You can be extroverted.
So you do think you're born into it?
I don't think you're born into it, but I think you can be born with those kind of qualities that will, down the line, allow you to reach that. But in order to become a real leader, I think there's a form of mental preparedness. Like you have to go through a form of training in a sense. I don't think you can just step in as a leader, right?
Yeah.
But there is people that, if born with those qualities, with time, will essentially naturally lead, right? They will, at one point or another, get into that position. As well as there's other people that just aren't born with that kind of a quality. They're more introverted. They're more independent. They prefer to work on their own or by themselves. That just wouldn't do well in that kind of a scenario.
Yeah. To be fair, I know I'm the one that said it, but we're not actually like technically born. That would be like more your personality. So pretty much how you're raised. That would determine like if you're sociable or not sociable. Yeah, I can kind of see that. I'm not like a huge fan of like the born with stuff, or that whole sort of stuff. I agree that certain people are more social, but I don't really think you have to be social to be a leader.
Oh, really?
I think I really don't think so. I think they're extremely effective leaders. Think about Elon Musk, right? That guy is awkward. He's not a like social person that you're just like, hey, dude, let me just hang out with Elon. Every interview I've ever seen from him is like slightly cringy in the fact that like he's super slow to like respond. He's not really, and he's a great leader, right? Absolutely nothing, wrong with his leadership style. I don't think you have to be super social. I think what you have to have is all these other things, knowing how to lead, knowing your limits, and having this like genuine humility. The COO, the chief operating officer of my company, is to this day like not my company, obviously the company that I work for, is to this day like the best leader I've ever met. And the thing that she always says is, what can I do to help you? I know that I can never know as much as you guys, but what can I do to help you? What can I do to facilitate your job? All these other things. And she's not the most social person, but she always makes you sort of like feel heard in a sense, right? So It's not like you set up a meeting and you're just like talking and then she responds. Like she'll have a notepad with her, like, or if she doesn't, right, in a meeting I've had, it's like, give me a second, let me go get my notepad. And I'm like, oh, like, are you taking notes on something? Like, yeah, I just want to make sure, like, if you say something I need to make a note of, and she'll stop and be like, give me a second, I just want to write that down. I'm like, oh shit, she's actually listening, right? Those are the qualities of a leader. And how you become a leader, personally for me, is ownership. I think it just always starts with ownership. And I don't think you can become a leader if you're not starting with yourself. You know what I mean? The reason why, and I've said this to you, why I suggest people read like Can't Hurt Me before you read Extreme Ownership, is like, you can't be a leader, in my opinion, if you haven't figured your own things out, in a sense. And we're never done figuring ourselves out. That makes sense. Like I'm not done either, but you have to have some sort of ongoing growth set up. You have to have some, if you had trauma in your childhood, things of that sort, just anything that hasn't been dealt with, that has to be dealt with before you're leading people. Because then, say you have a worker, that's extremely cocky, and it's extremely feeling like they almost run the company, right? Like they could just take over. And maybe that triggers something in your childhood and you haven't dealt with it, and you snap at them, right? In front of everyone, or just in front of them even, right? You just failed as a leader, right? Will it bring down the company? No, of course not. But it's those sort of like small imperfections that start taking a hit on your reputation, taking a hit on the respect that you have earned from people.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I would definitely agree. I mean, you definitely want to be considered a stable person, right? What do I mean by a stable person is you have a good foundation built, right? You don't have to be the complete house, but you definitely need the structure. You definitely need the foundation. Something that is strong enough to keep you up, right? To hold you up, and strong enough to keep up a team, right? Of course, like you said, we're always developing, we're always growing, we're changing our point of view on life as we know it. But that doesn't mean that you need those certain things, those certain standards by which you live your life, or certain things that you stand for that are really important and true to you, that make you who you are, right? Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I mean, part of that kind of came out when we were discussing this recently, right? And you were asking me if I would be a leader or not. I'm like, I don't see myself doing that right now, right?
Yeah.
And that's just me being honest. Not this quote unquote brutal honesty, right? That's like a new thing that's come out recently, that people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be brutally honest with you. It's like, no. There's no brutal honesty. There shouldn't be anything brutal about honesty. Honesty is
brutal.
Honest. Brutal. Yeah. No. I think honesty just is, right? It's the truth. Either it is or it's not. Either it's a truth or it's a lie, right?
Yeah.
If you can look somebody in the eyes and tell them like, hey, this and this is what's going on, that's the truth. If you look them in your eyes and you're like, yeah, but it's because the thing is, and you're like, no. It's BS, right? So I think that's what it comes down to. It's the honesty, right? If you recognize within yourself as like, okay, I'm stable. Okay, I have a good direction that my life is taking. Okay, maybe look into a leadership role. Maybe look into trying it out, right? But if you're not there, if your mentality isn't there, I mean, what are you doing, right?
How can you?
How could you even consider it?
Yeah, because if you think about it, I mean, maybe a weird way to think about it, but we are like the leaders of our own lives. You are choosing today what to do to hopefully build a better tomorrow, right? And if you haven't mastered that aspect of, and actually cross that out, not mastered, but if you haven't really found a groove or something where you're feeling like you're growing and consistent growing, and not a mastery, but just a consistent work and improvement,
consistent effort,
then how can you lead multiple people whose lives literally, I think I take this shit very seriously. I think like lives like literally depend on it. If you start a company, you hire 2 people and you're super excited, you're super passionate about it, like, man, this could really grow into something, and then something happens and you fail as a leader, you failed, and you failed them too, right? Mm-hmm. Because people believe you. If you start a company tomorrow and say like, hey man, I'm telling you this is a great idea, like join me, be my partner, we'll do this shit. I'm like, all right, for sure, let's do it. And years into the future, like bankrupts, I'm gonna take heat off of that too, and anyone else associated with that company. So I again, I don't take that stuff like lightly, because it's people's lives,
Yeah. I mean, as a leader, you also have to be self-reliant, right? Yeah. Because imagine if you're in a leadership role, but then you go back home and you're like asking your wife or your husband, like, hey, so like, what do you think about this? Like, should I have done this? Should I have done that? Right? Like, like, no. You're the one with the role. Like, there's no tag teaming. There's no, hey, back me up. Like, you're the leader. Perhaps there's specific situations where you have sort of an advisory board or somebody that's second in command, an assistant manager, whatever. Right? That makes sense. But in terms of being the leader, leading the team, it's all on you. Right? It's a massive weight on your shoulders. And so that's why we're saying, if you haven't figured yourself out, if you're not in the correct mindset, if your life is in shambles, don't even consider trying to pursue being a leader or any sort of leadership role. Because at the end of the day, if you step into that leadership role, it won't just be you suffering. That's a whole team, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Let me ask you this. What do you think you need to become a leader? You yourself. Let's put like personal stuff aside.
Oh.
Right. You figure out the personal stuff. You're good.
What's the next step after that?
Yeah. So let me set up the scenario. That happens. You have an idea, set up a business, earn some money. You're ready to expand. Let's say hire 5 people. Previously, you had no help. Now you see that there's an expansion. Now you see that you have more clients. Now you see that, frankly, you can't do it alone. So you set up, a couple of interviews and you go on to hire 5 people.
Okay.
What do you think you need once, you have those 5 people that maybe you don't have right now? What do you think you need to be an effective leader? What's like the first couple of things that come to mind? I'm just curious. I generally just want to know.
I mean, I think the first thing is you need to establish the team, right? I mean, if everybody's going to be in the same position, right? Like if everybody's just like an employee or everybody's just doing the same task, obviously establish that, right? But even if, say, within those people, there's some sort of ranking system, definitely establish that, from the get-go. I think that's the first most important thing is like establishing who's what, who's who, to have that very clear, right? Say, for example,
you need. What do you think you need?
What do I need from those people, or just in a general?
What do you need?
sense?
No. What do you need from yourself? So say, let's say scenario 5 years into the future, Omar is a fucking leader. Omar has 5 employees of some business. What does he look like? Obviously handsome as fuck, but
suit and tie.
We'll put that to the side for now.
Oh, okay.
What else?
I need some goals. I need to set some goals. I need to know what it is that I'm trying to do or accomplish with this team, so that I can lead, right? I need to set those goals in mind. Like, okay, if we're a team, what direction are we going in, right? If we have a ship, where's our sail pointing to, right? You're the sail, right? You're the leading wolf in the pack. Okay, what are our goals, right? After that, set the standard, right? Okay, we know what we want. Now we got to set the standard. How are we going to get there, right? What kind of work ethic do we want? How long are our shifts, or how long are we going to spend out of our days to work on this? How are we going to get there, right? Those are the first things that come to mind, is the goals and the standards.
Keep going.
Next after that, you start delegating, right? Once I can establish these things in my own mind, write them out, process everything, and say, okay, obviously, as you go through these things, you want to reflect on them, right? Like, is this good? Is this right? Okay. Kind of like double check it, right? Once I've established that, then you bring it to the team. Like, all right, listen up, guys. Have a meeting, little consultation within the whole team. Say, this is what we're here for. This is what we're here to do, right? Yeah. That's kind of the way I see it.
Good. Keep that image in your mind.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go lead a team.
That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted to do. Keep that image in your mind of what that guy looks like, how he acts, how he walks, how he talks to people.
Yeah.
I said it multiple times. Like, you have to see it. You have to visualize it before it happens. You have to become the leader before you're actually the leader. Right? You don't just stumble upon being a leader and having 5 employees. You got to that point because there was a path. There was a vision first, then came the path. The path will come, but the vision, right? You have to be looking towards something in order to go anywhere in life.
So was that a test?
No, that was just genuinely, I think people who want to be leaders, and I know that you do, should think about these things. Like, all right, so you want to be a leader. What does
Have
that
an
look
idea.
like? What is that actually genuinely a solid vision in your mind of like, this is what Omar, the leader version of Omar looks like.
I would almost consider it the real version of Omar.
There you go.
That's
The
again
real
though,
version of Omar.
and I
I'd like
think
to
this
meet
is
that
also
guy.
something. Shit, fuck, I would
That guy
too.
sounds like a fucking gangster. I'd like to meet that guy.
He's a savage. I'll tell you, he's a savage. When I
Yeah.
see him, I'll let you know. I think another thing that people don't talk about when thinking of leadership, right, is a stepping down. You know?
Ooh, spicy. Go ahead.
What if you're in a leadership role, and because you're such a great leader, you recognize somebody else within the team would become a better leader?
That is good. I like that.
I mean, how much
That
better
is-
of a leader
yeah.
could you be, right? To be able to delegate that power and say, you know what, I'm stepping down. It's time to pass the torch.
Yeah.
You're in control now. I'm the captain now.
Somehow knowing you, I kind of felt that was coming. I was like, captain joke coming soon.
I was waiting for it.
I'm the captain now.
But in all
That
seriousness,
is,
though,
yeah. Yeah, that's great. Honestly, that's, I feel like we talked about this at some point, just me and you. But yeah,
Yeah.
that would be, oh yeah, what was, I don't think it was you or I that was saying like the goal of a leader is to work themselves out of a job, right?
yeah,
That was the line there. And think about that. Like, we always think like, I really want to work hard so I can have that other position, so I can be this, so I can be the manager, so I can be the marketing manager, the marketing leader. Then you have the chief growth officer, and then you have this. And let's say you get to the CEO, and then that's it, right? You're just gonna like, all right, well, I got to the top. Like, no. Your whole job as a leader is to work yourself out of your job
yeah,
and to essentially make your job obsolete, right? So you get in that same position, like you're saying, where I am actually, and that's insane to think about, no longer needed in this company. Like, holy fuck, I've done such a good, that's like an amazing, that's for sure. That's like Omar leader version 2.2, because that's a higher leader than even the first one, bro. To be able to say like, I've done such a great job that literally these people that I've trained and work with can now lead this company. I can, stay as the founder, stay as a board member, advise them, but they no longer need me. They no longer need me. Wow, that's fucking insane. Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Goals.
To be a leader and take a step back and, like you said, have a business or a team essentially running themselves, right?
Yeah.
Where you've provided self-checks within every point, right, in between multiple people, where it's like literally you don't have to be there. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I think if you can somehow commit to being a leader, finding that formula to create a team that is self-reliant, that's when you're in the money. Because now you can take that formula with you and create a branch from that, right? Branch out.
Yeah.
Have multiple clones of that company, that business, that team, right? With that general format, and replicate it over and over again. You could be a CEO of a company and take that with you and create your own company.
Yeah. And I think that's how you get people being, I think they call them serial entrepreneurs, who have like multiple different companies.
Right.
Because think about it. Most people don't have any companies at all, right? Very few CEOs out there. But the ones that do have companies, they have multiple companies.
Not just one.
To me, I think like that just signals they found something out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like that sort of threshold where you find something out and you're like, oh shit, I found the recipe to succeed in maybe this particular market. I built this company, got employees, became the CEO, stepped down because now someone can do this job for me. And now you have the complete from beginning to end process. You have the formula, you have the path, everything written down. And then you think, I wonder if I can, become a company that makes posters. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's see what that looks like. And literally just like from there, iterate on the idea, work on this, hire employees. And of course, at that point, you have more financial stability and resources. You know how to work with capital firms and venture firms and a bunch of the other stuff to raise money. You have it all figured out. That's awesome. Yeah,
I really do think that's how it is. I think once you find that formula, you can take that with you. And, you know, we're talking right now, like, you know, specifically about like CEOs and big companies and stuff, but it's not just limited to that, right? I think in a general setting, if you can build a team once, you can build it twice. If you can build it twice, you can continue to do it for the rest of your life. What? Okay.
Actually, literally, that's actually the thing. You can build it twice.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You don't like that? You don't like when Lil Jon says that?
No. I do like Lil Jon, but not
when you were saying, like, yeah, you found like the formula. I just couldn't stop thinking the Krabby Patty formula or what?
The secret formula.
The secret.
You just see like Plankton like laughing in the background, you know, all evil and shit. Yeah, but I really do think that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, there were scenarios like, say, in school projects, you know, back in the day, where like, without even wanting to, I became the leader. I'm just like, damn it.
Yeah.
You know, because back in the day, all that meant to me is like, I'm gonna have to do more work. You know.
Yeah, right. It's always that. But you thought about it in that sense. I thought about it too.
Yeah, and I don't think we were wrong.
Yeah, I really hated. I don't know about you, but I really hated group projects in high school. Because at least for me, and I think you were probably on the other side, so I'm kind of triggered at it. But I would have to do most of the work because there would be those people that do the bare minimum, and I'm thinking like,
no, I was the same. No, I was the same.
You would do the most work, or you would do the least work?
No, I would do the most work.
Oh, okay, cool.
I wouldn't want to. But like, say, like, you know, like those what do they call those? Like the big posters that you could like fold open.
Yeah.
Like the ones that you would use, like. Yeah, like the ones that you would use for a science project or whatever. Yeah. You know, all the cool posters.
Just call them posters.
I remember on multiple occasions being placed into, or even by choice, being, you know, in a group of friends, you know, for a school project or whatever, and then me ending up doing most of the work, if not all, the night before. You know, there's one specific scenario I remember. I won't say who it was, but
shout out the names.
His name is...
Who fucked you up?
Nah. He was just like super paranoid the day before, you know, and we had the whole week to work on it. And he just like lets me know like the day before, like in class or something like that. He's like, hey dude, so like, what are we going to do for it? I'm like, it's cool. I got it. You know? And it was always that same, like, it's cool. I got it. Right. Mm-hmm. He's like, no, fool. Come on. Like I'll
help you out.
I'll do this. I'll do that. I'm like, it's easier if I just do it.
Yeah.
You know? And I think in that scenario, that was a terrible leader, right? That was me being a terrible leader. Because obviously you have to delegate the responsibility. But I would just be like, this is going to be too much of a headache for something that should be super simple. Like, I'll just do it myself. And then showing up the next day with this super nice poster, like, everything looks really nice. Because, you know, I'm very creative, right? So that's like my main thing. That's what I care more about. And showing up, and I literally showed up with, like, 3 specific pictures missing from the very bottom, and I just showed to class. I gave the glue stick to my friend, like, all right, dude, here, just put these on there. He's like, all right, cool, dude, sweet, thanks. And I'm like, all right. Yeah.
That, I gotta say, those same things, they weren't specific to high school. When I went to college, it was similar things.
Really?
Like, also, again, just because of, like, who I am, I like to make sure I'm doing my job correctly. And then I stopped caring after high school, like if other people were doing the job correctly, you know, because then what I would do is, like, if we get a bad grade, I'm like, look, this is what I did. It's great. Give you my grade based on that. Of course, the professor would be like, nah. And I had to get fucked over. Yeah. But yeah, again, thinking about it, there was a final project we had for, I would think it was my numerical analysis class, my last year of college, where we had a group project. And actually we were modeling, it was pretty cool. We were modeling the growth of COVID, because this is when COVID was pretty much like about to hit.
Okay.
And so we were modeling that with like some mathematical equations or whatever. There's people who think like this is a new thing. Like there was actual like models way before this that modeled perfectly how it would like go. You know, it's not like some new stuff that just happened. Like, so we literally modeled it pretty well. The growth of COVID, the sort of certain peaks there. Of course, not perfect. We were just, you know, undergrads, but it was pretty good. And the responsibilities were sort of equally split there. And so I thought at that time, again, we're seniors in college, like let's just all do our own job. But sure enough, like certain ones would be turning in things super late because it was a whole like semester project. So there would be like stages that you would have to turn in. And at each stage I'd be like, yo, so are you done with that? Like, no, I'm not done with that. I'm like, all right, cool. Like I kind of depend on you to finish that so that I can move on to the next part and get us going. You know, it's like, oh yeah, dude, I'm really sorry. Like I was just like super busy. And I'm not one to be like, oh shit, like get your shit together, you know, because I'm like, yeah, life happens. That's understandable.
You're probably like, bro, I saw you at the party last night. You weren't doing shit. You didn't even walk out of there with a girl. You're not that busy.
So I was like, all right, dude, I get it, whatever. But at the very, very end to the final submission, I was like, yeah, so like, are you guys like done with this? And like, no, actually, like, no, we're not done with this. Like, we have to do this, this, and that. And I was just like, bro, you're literally telling me about this. Like, I think it was like 2 or 3 days before we had to turn it in. Like, hard deadline, turn this shit in. And I'm like, bro, no. Like, I'm in any other scenario, I would like start freaking out. Like, holy shit. Like, I have to come in here and like do this work. So, you know, because I wanted to pass. Obviously, this was my last sort of like semester of college. Like, you know how lame that would be, like and I remember telling you about this, like, you know how lame it would be, like, fucking fail my last semester of college and have to retake that shit again. Like, fuck, which would have been even worse because COVID was hitting at that time too.
Yeah, major L.
Anyways, and in this particular instance, I was like, nah, man. Like, I literally didn't respond anymore to the group chat, and I just turned it in. I was like, nah, man, I'm good. Like, you're good. And I turned it in like 3 days before, and I never like responded to them again. And it's hilarious to think about now because I'm like, holy shit, what a horrible fucking leader. This guy just fucking straight up was like, all right, deuces, bye. You know?
Yeah. And did you see them ever again in person?
No. Because at that point, COVID hit.
So it's all virtual?
Really hit like around March. And I graduated in May. January, February, March. So in March, we went fully remote. So January, February, March, April. Yeah. So it was April and May. We were fully remote. So I never saw any of them again. At this point, we were all just at our houses doing the project. So we would just be group texts, that whole sort of stuff. So I never saw them again. And honestly, I didn't want to because they really had me triggered. And
the audacity.
Fucking audacity, man.
Yeah.
Again, it's so easy though to be like, yo, you fucked up. Like you did this wrong. But it's like, that's a thing. Like in none of the projects that I've been in school, there was never a leader. You know what I mean? There's never really one. And maybe the teacher would be like, oh, like so-and-so is in charge just because they thought they were the smartest or whatever. But never like a proclaim like, hey, dude, everyone says like, hey, this is the guy. Like he's cool. He knows how to handle this shit. He's cool under pressure. This guy's the leader. There was never a leader, you know? And so now I'm not surprised that like most of my group projects were pretty trash.
Well, now that I think about it, I think it was purposely done, like these school projects, right? Whether it was in elementary, middle school, high school, college, graduate school. I think these are all done purposely like a group graded project. I don't think they do it any other way for the specific purpose of you have to delegate within yourselves. You're forced to try to reason with each other. You're forced to work together because there's a common goal, which is your grade that's at stake, right? Yeah. If it weren't for that, I think people would not care. They're like, oh, like I'm gonna finish my part. Oh, my part looking better than yours is gonna make you look bad. I don't care. Like I'm gonna get graded better than you. But since it's a joint grading system, right? You're all together in it. It's like, yeah, you're either all fucked or you're all gonna do well. You know, the choice is yours.
And think about different goals too. I'm always trying to get an A, but if my teammates are like chill with getting a C, they don't have to work on this project that much. You know, it's like let's just like do the bare minimum. And I'm like, bro, I'm trying to get an A in this class. Like I don't want to do the bare minimum, right? So that's also an instance of like different goals, and you have to get everyone in line. Like, yo, the goal here is fucking 100%, or the goal here is maybe you don't care about that either. Maybe the goal here is 70%. We just want to do the bare minimum, dude. Let's pass so we can move on to the next class or graduate, whatever it is. But just as long as everyone is on the same page, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And that's it, right? Companies are just a collection of individuals. That's it.
Yeah. So. The only other thing I would add to that is there's a few scenarios I remember when I would be working with, the smart people in class or whatever, when I'd be placed in their group, and it'd be like an instant intimidation where I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, they probably think I'm the stupid guy in the group,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I gotta make sure I hold my end. I can't give them any reason to doubt me or think like, oh, shit, we're fucked, Yeah.
And
what I would notice is that immediately these people would assume the role as leader, but do a very good job at it because they would instantly see everybody's weaknesses and everybody's strengths. And they'd instantly be like, hey, you do this, you do that, you do this. And it would give me more ambition, I'd be more motivated to excel at whatever it was that I was supposed to do for the group project, right? Because I'm like, okay, I'm with some badass mofos. Like, they're going to hold their end. They're going to do what they need to do. She just told them, or they just told them what they need to do. They're going to focus on only that. I got my task. Like, let's get to work, And there's nothing more motivating than having a good leader, right?
Having a good leader and having, to me, like, the thing that I really, like, am enjoying about the company that I'm working for is, like, everyone in their own way, even if they don't sort of, like, realize it, are, like, their own little mini leaders. So in the same way, like you're saying, like, you have one badass leader. Honestly, I don't have as much, like, face-to-face time with our CEO, but, like, everyone in our team is doing dope ass work, literally, where I'm like, holy shit, dude, like, I know half of what you're saying here, but I know it's super dope. Like, it's confusing, it's cool, and that on its own too is like when you have a good leader, but to add to that, when you have a good team, you're just like, you don't want to be the weak link, you're just like, damn. So if everyone's here, and maybe I'm like here, a little bit lower, you can't lie to me and be like, no, I'm actually comfortable being here. I'm like, holy shit, well, let me at least get here and fucking go over here and let's see if they follow me up,
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do that in life.
Let's lead. Let's fucking lead.
Let's lead. All right. Well, I think it's been a great episode. It's something that I've been wanting to talk about for some time, and who knows, maybe we'll come back to it later. I'm definitely planning on having at some point the CEO of my company, the company that I work for. I think that would be cool. He's a great leader as well. The COO, she's like super busy, so I don't know. But I'm personally, I love to talk about people, about leadership and all these other things. And I think we sort of as individuals can learn a lot from these people as well. So definitely look forward in the future to more guests on the podcast. Hopefully, a couple leaders there, collaborations with other podcasts as well. We're definitely trying to take this to I just call it the version 2 of the podcast. Previous 2.0 was great. Yeah. But this version is meant to be the next iteration. So we'll be coming out with a lot of changes in the coming weeks. That will be super exciting. We'll announce a bit more of those as we get closer to that. And as always, before the wow, make sure to follow us on IG, the Intrynsic Podcast. And we're on Spotify, a bunch of other platforms. And then we'll see where exactly this video ends up. I have a sensation it'll be on YouTube. But if we can get it on Spotify and other platforms, then we'll try to do that as well. Any final words before the wow, Mr. Omar?
No, just thank you for your continued support, and do make sure to share this, with your families, friends, loved ones, your neighbor's dog,
whoever.
Get the word out there.
You always have the randomest people at the end where I'm like, yeah, for sure. And then you're like, what? Oh, okay, a dog too.
Hey, you got to make sure they're still there.
That's true. Send
us away.
Definitely stay tuned. There are some big changes coming, some really exciting changes, and things that I think are going to really grow this podcast and make it overall better for both the audience and for Omar and I as well. So without further ado, our wow comes from the book that I referenced the whole podcast, whole episode. and it comes from Jocko Willink, again, retired Navy SEAL, commander of, I believe it was combat unit Bruiser, and he says, there are no bad leaders. Oh, sorry, I fucked it up. There are no bad teams, only bad leaders. I mixed it up there.
Beautiful.
No bad teams, only bad leaders. Let's get after it, everyone.
Thank you.